advertising takes some time to work. This I call the fallacy of effective reach. When I started in advertising at what is now Initiative Media, it was deeply believed that advertising took multiple exposures before it ever clicked with the consumer. This was called either the theory of effective reach or effective frequency, basically depending on which agency you worked at. Let's look at this myth. It's been going on for over 40 years, and still today, the majority of media planning is based on this idea. Marketers are told that a specific threshold level of frequency has to be met before advertising becomes effective. This mythical threshold has been misinterpreted as 1 time or as 3 times, or in some cases, you use a chart of marketing conditions to find your magical number. On the creative side, some even believe that messages and creatives need to wear in before their effectiveness can be evaluated. What's happened over time is that there's been continuous oversimplification and dilution of the marketing research that's been made, and it makes interpreting customer response to advertising difficult, and more importantly, it generates media recommendations that are simply wrong. Okay? In most of these cases, advertising research has been turned into a tool of convenience that's not correct in the face of the data we have today. Originally, the original myth here started that 3 was the magic number of exposures that you had to have in order to respond to advertising. This came from an academic article that really stated it as a theory that 3 exposures might be enough. And the industry evolved that into 3 or more is the ideal number. Math-wise, it means that media planners are saying that exposures before that magic number of 3 count as 0, and that all the exposures after that threshold count 100%. That these magic numbers are kind of an aha moment for the consumer, and that all consumers go through that moment simultaneously. In the 90s, there was some groundbreaking research called recency that identified that for certain products and circumstances, a single exposure at the perfect moment in time will be completely effective. This got simplified into maximize one-time reach every week. What media plans based on recency now do is identify the perfect weekly schedule to maximize reach and then run that schedule over and over and over again. In the creative side, the same language has been used for decades, that a message needs to wear in before consumers will take action and before it can be judged whether it's successful or not. The implications of all of these theories is either that advertising is so complex that it takes multiple exposures for the consumer to understand what the advertising is saying, or it's so simple that it's one and done. The truth is much more complicated, as our data and the data of others has borne out for over a decade. How advertising actually works. Advertising works on what's called a convex curve. People respond to both media, exposure, and creative in the manner you see on this chart. The first impression is by far the most important, and then diminishing returns follow. And this is a consistent finding that both Marketing Evolution and other companies, as well as virtually every serious academic research study into advertising response, has found. The only exception to this rule is sometimes in media that have a low opportunity to see, like digital display and sometimes out of home. In those media, very often the first exposure is not even noticed by the viewer. And so in that case, the curve is flat at first, but then once the consumer notices the advertising, the convex curve starts in. It's always a convex curve.